part of doing this restoration is half the car is done the way it left the factory. The other half of the car is done the way the car was raced. The only way we can prove what it looked like is through photographs, and that's what we've done. We've taken the original photographs, we've documented all the unique items on it, and we've tried to duplicate every one.
While the motor is out getting rebuilt, the trim can be installed on the freshly painted and polished body. Extra care should be taken to avoid damage at this point, and now is not the time to try and fit new parts. Every piece should be test fitted long before this stage. As the chassis goes together, we can see the payoff in filling all the rust pits. Here you can compare the difference to a part that was just blasted and painted and to one that had all the pits filled in. Now remember, every part on this car, every bracket, frame, cross member, every piece of this car had this process done to it. Because if you recall, when we took the chassis apart, this frame was rusty. You'll notice all the factory markings were duplicated on the frame. But the race components like the scatter shield are left and not replaced by original components. The shocks and the brakes are later date coded in 1957, because the car is being restored to its race configuration in 1962. Once the engine is back from the rebuilder, it is now ready for paint. The oil pan, water pump, and engine mount were all originally painted on the motor, so they need to be installed before the painting process. We found if you use a regular engine enamel out of a regular spray bomb on the bare motor and then spray the Chevy orange out of a gun, the finish is great and will last longer that way. The motor, transmission, and rear end, as well as all the brakes and fuel lines, are installed before the body is lowered onto the chassis. If you look closely, you'll notice the generator is on the right side, which is not factory correct, but it is correct for this car. The mechanic may have put it on the right side for any number of reasons, weight distribution, or simply to make room for the overflow tank. Once the body is united with the chassis, it quickly appears as if the end is in sight. The entire fuel injection unit was sent to Boydell for rebuilding, and now it's ready to install. If you look closely, you can see where the plenum was actually cut in two for internal modifications and then welded back together. Wonder if that was legal in the day. The interior is fairly straightforward, other than a roll bar, racing belts, and some extra gauges, and of course the trick seats that we showed you a couple of weeks ago. Now the final details can be finished, like the lettering and the numbers. It would appear the meatballs would have been sprayed on and the numbers were hand painted by perhaps a sign painter. While trying to duplicate everything to the pictures which were made available to us from the Hussey brothers, that's exactly what we're using, is a sign painter, paint on the letters, and paint on the numbers. When we're assembling this car, we have to be careful not to restore everything back to the way the factory did things, but to how the car looked when it was raced. This car needs to be a snapshot at the time.